Yeah, so going back to the long-term history of what we've seen in the past, kind of looking as the past as prologue. Look, we've seen ISIS continuing to desire, and it's been aspirational, but, as we talked about 2 years ago, that they were going to do this. They were going to, while it was aspirational then, ISIS is one of the network they could cooperate with. So, we've seen...
they said, we want liberals, we want white people that don't look Arabic that we can use to carry out the attacks.
Right. So we've seen parallels here. I mean, look, we've seen the Muslim Brotherhood penetrating serially our media. They've been working to penetrate basically criminal organizations for purposes of exploitation and access. So we've seen that over there with the Brotherhood. So ISIS is going, taking a page out of their playbook, doing the same thing. So we have to be very vigilant. And I think this is what we are seeing now, is this kind of merging. We've seen organizations like Hamas partner with other organizations to do terror attacks, even if they don't necessarily agree on every fact. So this is what I think we're seeing here. We have to be very clear, very steely-eyed. And again, let's just follow the facts. The second point is, it's not, as much as I'm hearing and you're hearing the same thing, a lot of the background motivation by Paddock, by the reason he did it, is going to make people very uncomfortable. But you got to get it out there. You got to tell the American people the truth. You got to be straight with them, because they kind of already know why they're dragging their feet. And again, going to the point of the attack of Congressman Solis against him by Hodgkinson does parallel what the left has been pushing for from day one for the president's victory. The idea that they will use Antifa, they will use violence as a method of not only resistance, but then also creating a path back to some level of power. And so this is what they're laying out. This is what they're trying to do. So again, I don't want people to think somehow this is not substantiated by the facts. Unfortunately, Alex, as you know, over the years we've talked, I only go with what the facts show. I try.
Well, sure, they're going to attack you because before the bodies were cold, they said no ISIS. When ISIS had, there were terror attacks all over the world that day by ISIS, and they weren't even taking credit for those because those were lone wolves. They weren't even sure were their people. They were very proud of this guy. They were very proud of their execution. They had their literature ready. They said, we have him months ago swearing allegiance, and now I've got it from White House sources that they're sitting on top, because much of ISIS is their own internal stuff, as many have said, streaming back to the ISIS folks, coordinating this, and he obviously had help, and then it looks like he may have been the cutout. Have you gotten any intel along those lines?
Well, look, that's one of the rumors I've heard. That's a very strong possibility. Again, look, you and I both know, and the sheriff even said this. This guy was videotaping everything. He had all these cameras. Do you really believe he didn't have them turned on and using them for the purpose they were designed? This guy was very meticulous. This guy was hyper meticulous. He worked for the IRS, which is a clue. He was an accountant. He's done all these different things.
He drank Pepsi.
Right. And so
again, liberals, literally, conservatives do not drink, especially in the Obama era. Conservatives drink Coca-Cola. If you drink soft drinks, liberals drink Pepsi. And that's a big clue.
That's a big clue. But my point being, Alex, is that this guy followed a certain pattern. He developed himself in a certain way. He had a modality of operation that's very detailed. So this is
what do you make of the big defense contractor he worked with? I mean, the whole thing, and the planes and the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent per gambling trip, and he was a smart investor. Sounds like money laundering.
Well, it's very possible. I mean, again, we don't know. But I will say this about him. He was brilliant in the fact that he was able to establish that money, those resources. I think he was just like Hodgkinson, except he was smarter. He actually had a better understanding of how to survive.
And that's my next question. It's later admitted that Hodgkinson wanted to go in and have a special election, kill as many Republicans as possible. The Democrats are saying hashtag hunt Republicans. They're hashtag hunt cops. CNN, when more cops get killed, go, well, cops are bad. You need to reform yourselves, because some cop might have done something wrong 5 states away. Then you deserve to die, though it turns out the cop didn't do something. I mean, this is craziness. Why is the left betting on this giant revolutionary fervor and saying, starting October 1st, we're going to launch building up to November 4th. I mean, they're the ones saying it, and then none of the media is even focusing in on that. If you look at all this, are they just attempting, like many intel people I've talked to just hype things up and hope some other crazy person picks up on it so they can have clean hands?
I think there's always inevitability and encouragement of a kind of a parallel event, no doubt. And let's look at what they focused on, Alex. The first thing that was leaked off the crime scene was pictures of the guns. Oh, the guns are bad. Oh, boy, you know. And I've seen, again, them ignoring the facts that you and I have just talked about, all the things which have been said in press conferences through official sources, completely and summarily being ignored by every media outlet except for Fox. And to that point, the narrative they're trying to put forth is it's all about the guns. Guns are bad. People who have guns are bad. And think about the irony of this. Of course, at the same time, they're saying you can't trust the police. You know, don't trust the police, but we don't want you to be armed either. So there's really no cohesion to their argument. It's all about trying to upend via this feeling, via this fervor. They want to get people into basically a fervor, an emotional fervor, saying, "Oh my God, we have to do something." It's all about emotion.
Exactly. It's like blow it all up, even though they don't have a blueprint for what they're going to build new.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that's the answer, is that they don't have a plan. They lost access. Hillary's loss has completely left them, I think, adrift. And
so turn the chessboard over. Basically, they're throwing. Yeah. We're looking for strategy. We're seeing a temper tantrum.
Yeah. An official, all aspects, all levels, temper tantrum that is informed by hate. It is fueled by radicalization, and frankly, as I said on the tape you ran, this is becoming an accepted form of political speech on their side. It's just what it is.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, LondonCenter.org, best-selling author. Follow him on Facebook and Twitter. Brandon Tatum, police officer, patriot, very popular talk show host in his own right. Sitting there listening to Colonel Shaffer, I see you nodding your head. What's your comment or statement or question?
Well, I think that it's, if anyone was to have in their mind that this is not some type of assisted, calculated thing, they have to be foolish. Because in law enforcement, just looking at the operation,
super sophisticated.
Right. I mean, there's no way that a older gentleman with supposedly no tactical experience can pull this type of stuff off.
If I brought 20 bags up to any hotel, they'd come see what I was doing. Right.
I mean, how did he? How could he physically get all of these guns up there? How could he physically carry all that?
I can barely get my wife and all my kids in a hotel.
It's just so. And I'm the same way, But I think that you have to look at. Be logical about it. Have some common sense.
You pull up with a bunch of Pelican cases, they're not. The bellhops aren't going to be looking at this,
right? unless you put something in it to muffle the shells. I mean, you're going to hear guns. I mean, bullets rattling, going up staircases.
What about that, Colonel Shaffer? Just the whole getting it into the building and.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, first off, I'm appalled that we've seen zero video. The incidental videos, as you know, Alex, and being out there. There's video cameras everywhere in those casinos. They track everything. So the fact that we've not, after a week, seen anything indicates to me, look, there's something up with that. There's just absolutely no way he was not caught in some aspect, checking in, moving. And again, this guy was not a physical specimen of health for him both to move the equipment and then during the shooting itself, for him to move past. Look at the diagrams, Alex, of the room and those two windows. To physically move between those points, at the same time, reloading, moving weapons around, for him to do that by himself is physically probably pretty darn impossible. Even some fit person would have a hard time going back and forth doing that. So again, I agree. Common sense. Just think for yourself. You got to look at the facts. You got to look at the reality. You got to look at the physics.
That's right. LondonCenter.org. We've got a 70-second break. I've got a short little 5-minute segment. If Colonel Shaffer can do it, I want to specifically ask him separately about the NFL protests, the stuff we saw with Puerto Rico, just all the hoaxes.
I got to jump off.
You got to jump. Okay. Well, please come back soon with us then.
I will. Hey, thanks.
All right, thank you. Very powerful. I'm going to come back then and ask you about the NFL, and I was going to ask you, too, about that. Straight ahead on the other side, the third hour is only set.
Right. Actually, I'm in southern Arizona, but, yeah, I mean, if anybody with common sense that have any kind of tactical experience can understand that the things that we've seen, this guy is not operating alone, and he's not operating on his feeble tactics. Supposedly, he never shot a gun before. He never had any tactical experience. He wasn't in the military. For him to choose particular vantage points, egress, different things like that is spectacular for somebody who has the character and personality that I guess we know of in this gentleman. I mean, you know, him
23 guns.
Right. For a person that never owned a gun before, supposedly, his family is saying, for him to have 23 guns at one point, he must have at least tried them out, tested them.
Well, what do you make of his brother first saying, oh, he didn't have any guns, wasn't into it, wasn't political, he didn't do it, to he did, he had all the guns. I mean, the brother's been caught lying.
Right, because, you know, this is the truth of the matter. You know, sometimes people defend their family members. You know, you got a family member that's crazy. You may not want to expose them right away, but you know, and they know that this guy wasn't hiding in the closet and not showing signs and symptoms of being psycho. You don't just go from being a normal person to doing something crazy like that and nobody see a clue. Not even sleep patterns, not even the fact that they won't answer the phone when you call or they have an attitude all of a sudden. His girlfriend testified that, she spoke and said that he was having these nightmares.
He would have screamed for hours.
Yeah, you don't just go from being a normal person to screaming for hours at night. It's very, very suspicious. And I think that his family know. There's other people that are out there that know who he is and thought, you know, his neighbors even said that, you know, he's kind of weird.
Why do you think then the family at first just said, oh, no guns, totally normal?
They're trying to protect the personality of their family member. They don't want the media to take it and run with it and make him out to be this.
We all know the casinos are 60-40 if you're at a better one, 70-30 at others. He always was a winner. I mean, getting back to the money laundering thing and all these connections, millions a year on gambling, supposedly winning, I don't buy it.
Right. I mean, there's two sides to every coin, you know. So I think that he could be very, very sophisticated. He could be going to the casinos and playing all the time. Therefore, he can kind of game the system. But at the same time, it's highly suspicious. I don't have any information about it, but I'm not going to sit there and look at it at face value and say, oh, this guy's just such an expert and he's just winning all the time. So I think there's definitely a component there, too.
We've got Robert Kiyosaki coming up about his book and the economy and the world, everything that's happening. But just overall, I'm not in some butt-kissing mode of President Trump, but $4 trillion in the stock market, hundreds of billions of new jobs, 1.6 million new jobs, 3.1% growth rate they said he could never had. The border, 69% reduction in illegals coming across. NAFTA gap being renegotiated, TPP dead. All these other good things, cutting all these regulations, trying to get middle-class tax cuts. I mean, wow. Why doesn't the establishment just get out of the way? Because they're rich or even getting richer. Goldman Sachs, they say, has had the biggest profits ever, but they still want to destroy Trump.
Right. It's about being haters. And I think that it's obviously have a lot of political turn to it. But when people hate on you, they don't want to see you succeed. I don't care what you're doing. He could find a cure for cancer today, and they're going to find an excuse to demonize what he's doing. And it's just because they're hating it. They're not the ones in office. They're not the ones running the country. They can see that their agenda is falling apart day by day, and they can't handle it. At all costs, they're going to try to ruin his reputation, whether it's...
And that's it. And if he didn't deliver, it'd be one thing. They've had his hands tied behind his back. He's already delivered so much, it's crazy.
Right. He's done so much for this country, and they don't want to talk about it. But you know what? We see it. The people like myself who have been, you know, who have awakened to the reality, and we go out and vote. I mean, we're waking up to this. I can, you know, I have my own mind. I can look at a piece of paper. I can look at the news. I can look at the stocks. I can see that he's progressing, and I can see that I personally feel better with him being the president. And I don't care what they say. They're just making up lies.
And so they're throwing big tantrums, like you said earlier.
Right, like a kid throwing a fit over a popsicle.
Stay with us. Alex Jones here to tell you about how you can help spread liberty worldwide while also enjoying what I have found to be the best tasting 100% organic coffee on the planet. For more than a decade, my favorite coffee has come from the high mountains of southern Mexico, where the Chiapas farmers grow their unique shade-grown Arabica beans. We have now managed to secure these sought-after beans in a highly customized blend. Discover and try a bag of the Patriot Blend 100% organic coffee at infowarslife.com. This coffee saying, you've been on fire during the breaks about what's really going on, why the police can't say what's going on at this point, and where you see this all going, and then into the gun control issues, the actual statistics of why. This is a tragedy, but to say it's the biggest thing in the world and then try to blame gun owners and say ban the NRA, I mean, that's crazy. They're the conspiracy theorists. They're covering up it's probably an Islamic attack, and then they're blaming it on us at the same time.
Right. And when it comes to law enforcement, like there's certain things that we can and cannot do, we will not do to preserve our own tactical advantage. So we may have information about certain things. We will never disclose those things because we have to have the advantage. Listen, when things happen, the citizens aren't the ones that have to do the takedowns. The citizens aren't the ones that got to get the search warrants and things like that. So we have an advantage by having the upper hand, having information that nobody knows about, understanding how to do counter tactics on different things. So this is an advantage for law enforcement. So I'm not surprised that they're not disclosing everything. And I think that they're doing a good job at attempting to allude to certain things about radicalization and, the fact that they believe that he's not acting alone. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this person has so many guns, so many different tactical advantages that he could not have done it himself with his level of experience. So I think that's pretty much, my take on the law enforcement perspective. And as far as the gun control, this is the most ignorant, unreasonable thing I've heard coming out of the mouth of Democrats and the left is I don't understand at what point do they make to try to ban guns or try to have some level of gun control. This person purchased firearms legally. So the laws that we have in place are almost some of the most strictest laws. And this guy was still able to take advantage of it. Barack Obama's administration pushed the bump stock, a mechanism that they put on a rifle.
I've never even heard of a crime being committed with that. And now suddenly it is, but I've talked to experts. They say that's not a bump stock. That's clear chain fed.
I'm not an expert on firearms,
well,
but
I've had the experts on.
It sounds like it was possibly chain fed. I couldn't imagine.
Well, I mean, I had the former leader of SEAL Team 6 on.
Right.
And he didn't let me saying that, but it's true. And they go, look, it's belt. They even know the gun.
Right.
Because there's certain ones that have that. They know them like a woman. They say it's like it speeds up and slows down.
Right. And I couldn't look past that. I mean, it didn't sound like he had a 30-round mag. So, I mean, you're talking about rapid fire for.
Yeah, it's not stopping it. Exactly. It's not 30 and then stopping. It's belt.
Right. And I can see why, if that was discovered, why they don't want to let the public know that this person has access to this and some certain different things. They don't want people to go crazy because what's going to happen if you give them information without giving them everything, without them understanding the totality of it, you can cause people to freak out and then they make, false claims and do other stuff that's unreasonable and it's not helpful.
That's right. By the way, this broke about an hour ago on infowars.com, another Paul Watson article by the great investigative journalist Laura Loomer, who helped prove the receipts and the fact that he checked in days earlier. Our moles inside gave us to police on Monday. Nothing was done, so they've given it to us. Valet entries prove Paddock checked in 3 days before date given by authorities. Government was in the hotel on September 25th. That is now double confirmed. We need to send that to drudgereport.com. We need to link that at the top of Paul's article that already deals with all this. So valet entries from Mandalay Bay prove the government Stephen Paddock checked into on September 25th, 3 days before the official date given by authorities for when he checked in September 28th. Reporter Laura Loomer obtained an image from inside Mandalay Valet Center, which shows Paddock's car was first logged on September 25th. Below the computer display, a handwritten note is available that states, Stephen Paddock, 9/25/10/02. According to Loomer's source, the note was written by an FBI agent when he asked valet staff details on all in and out times for Paddock's vehicles. So that shows the FBI knew. According to Loomer's, the picture proves the FBI misled public about hashtag Stephen Paddock's check-in date. Laura Loomer, we are going to get her as at least a contract reporter. She's amazing. According to official sources, Paddock didn't check until September 28th, 3 days before the massacre. What do you make of this as a police officer, SWAT guy, all this? I mean, I don't want to bash the FBI, the police, but and I understand they don't want people to know it's a terror attack, but why keep, because we've confirmed all this. I mean, they're not telling us what went on here. So it's one thing to not tell folks what you know, it's another thing to lie.
Right. I think the leverage should be put on the FBI. I think that law enforcement only have a certain capacity to even...
No, I agree. It's the FBI doing this. It's the sheriff that keeps coming out and contradicting him.
Right. The sheriff is trying to do the right thing and saying, look, we're not going to play the political games. We're not going to do that. We're going to give you information that we can at the best of our ability. But it's discouraging. And, the thing is that some people, they may not want to believe that the FBI does these things. And I'm not saying that the FBI is obvious. They have obvious flaws.
They have some good people, but they're famous for this.
Exactly. I don't want to step on anybody's toes and say that. But what I'm saying is that, even facts of the reason Hillary Clinton is not in prison right now is indications that they're not always truthful and they're not always doing what's right for the public. And I think that this is another example. They have some type of agenda. I don't know what it is. Maybe they don't want to be embarrassed, but there's no way that they should not be. I mean, this is the thing. If they weren't going to give information, that's fine. But don't give us fake information. Don't give us lies. Don't give us fraudulent stuff. If you're going to tell us when he checked in, at least tell us the true time. If you're not going to tell us the true time and you have a reason why, don't tell us anything at all. But what it does is it discredit their argument, and we don't even trust anything they say.
I was about to say, though, we've got the internal documents, we've got the receipts, we've got the valet info, and it keeps all checking out with the sheriff's department later. And then we've got the FBI doing this. Paul's headline, we'll put it back on screen, isn't even strong enough. The headline really should be FBI caught lying about when the shooter checked in. So this is very, 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 very serious. Valet entry proves Paddock checked in 3 days ago, and then our reporter ended up talking. We got to get Laura Loomer on during the fourth hour with the great Mike Cernovich as well. But wow, this is just crazy.
Right. Another thing that struck me was that why did they come out so soon and try to disconnect his motives, his tactics, his responsibility to ISIS?
When they've taken credit.
Right. When they've already taken credit, they come out and say, no, there's no evidence of it, no tracking. I mean, listen, this is a serious incident. It's going to take months to do a full, thorough investigation. Yeah,
they're telling us don't jump to conclusions, but they jumped at minute one.
Right. Obviously, it's for political gain. The common man knows that there's something suspicious because in any other thing that benefits them, they'll say, no, take your time, do an investigation.
Truth is, the Democrats are panicking. So one of their leftists is who we've got out there at Democrat rallies and everything else, just like Reality Winner and all the rest of them, joined ISIS.
Yeah, right.
And it's super embarrassing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like, I mean, they act like ISIS is not pursuing the same motives. Like, it's not out of the question that they pursued him and that he's been radicalized. They've done it.
They've got Linda Sarsour leading the women's marches when she openly wants jihad and women with burqas on.
Right. They've done it before. This is a tactic. This is an easy tactic for them because they don't have to pay or try to get people over here, and they may be suspicious. They're going to get people that are inconspicuous, and they're going to put them out there, and they're going to do crimes, and we catch them. But right now, they don't want us to know that because they don't want to be embarrassed that this person was probably a leftist doing a heinous crime.
Brandon Tatum, you're going to be on for a full hour on the War Room coming up at 3 o'clock. I'm going to let you get some lunch. You're doing a great job hosting for the last hour plus with us. The Officer Tatum, Facebook.com, TatumBug34, YouTube.com/BTCruiser34. Incredible videos, incredible information. That's just his Twitter, but check out his Facebook. Last time I saw your Facebook was 100,000. What is it now?
108.
Well, you're doing awesome. And what's crazy is you can have 70 million views on one video, and just like us, then more folks don't follow us. It's important on our Facebooks, on our Twitters, on our YouTubes to actually follow us so you get all the information. Get some lunch. Get ready for the War Room coming up live, and it's great to have you in town, sir.
Thank you. Good being here.
Think of them blaming Christians, conservatives, libertarians with no proof when we've got the kitchen sink and more with the Islamic connection. What do you make of this?
Well, Alex, you know, I give you credit because you're the bravest man in the world. For all of these years, you've been talking about fake news. And I think it behooves every one of us to really seek out what real news is. And I think that's why so many people tune into you. And I'm just like you. I'm so disgusted because I don't even trust what I hear anymore or read, or I don't trust the media. And I think that's a deeper issue right now when we can't trust our leaders and our media with fake news. So I really have no comment.
No, I mean, I agree. Who knows what the truth is? And then they don't even know what happened. But then if we question it, they say we're bad.
Right, correct. And then, you know, again, they're blaming guns and all this stuff. They want to take guns away. It's just a red herring. So
you've got the new book out. All your books are top bestsellers. Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. What is Financial Education? Talking about solutions here. I want to get into the book, and we're going to do that in a moment. But before we go any further, let me just ask you then, richdad.com is the big website. And again, a lot of these are just secrets that once you know them, you're like, wow, that's so simple. Why didn't I know that before? Reading your books has helped me so much, be independent. But looking at Trump, I mean, I don't want to involve myself in a butt-kissing deal here, but it's true. $4 trillion in the stock market, hundreds of billions in new jobs, 1.6 million new jobs, 3.1 growth rate they say it never had. And this is just getting rid of a few regulations, trying to deliver tax cuts, doing everything else he said. Why are they so against him when everybody, including Goldman Sachs, has made record profits the last 9 months under Trump? What's their problem? He's like shoveling success at them, and they're mad.
Well, I think the biggest reason is because most people are not getting richer. That's why my book is called Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. And the average person is not getting richer. And so that's why the media is obviously a big part of that, because they lie to us. But people are getting poorer, not richer, no matter how high that stock market goes. And that's the problem.
Explain it to me then. I mean, I haven't read the new book yet. I probably read, first book I read here as I was like 16 years old, literally. So explain to me. Explain to me what I'm...
There's fake news. In 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, the US dollar became fake money. And I was in Vietnam in 72 when that happened. And I started to realize that the US dollar was not designed to make us rich. The US dollar, once it became fake, a fiat currency, was intentionally designed to steal our wealth and our lives. So that's why if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which came out 20 years ago, I said the rich don't work for money and the rich avoid taxes, because the more you work for money, actually the poorer you get. Another example is I was at the bank yesterday doing desperately, because I have so much cash coming in, to hide it in different banks. And the bank teller sat there, she says, "Oh, we're gonna give you 0.011%. I went, what? I mean, I've been so out of doing my own banking. I said, how does somebody survive on 0.011 or 15% when inflation is running at 9%? And so Americans are getting poorer just because they have no financial education in schools. And that's why Donald Trump and I became such good friends, is want to teach people about money.
People are going to want to read the book, and they should read them all. But
thank you.
What was the first book you wrote? Because I'm 44, and I know from memory. I think I was in high school when I read your first book. When did you first publish a book?
It was 1997.
Okay, then my memory's wrong. It must have been after that. My dad was trying to get me to read books about investment and something else. But I know, I read your book very early on. It's just amazing, these common sense secrets.
Well, it's why is there no financial education in school? And these teachers kind of teach. And, my poor dad was a school teacher, he's a good man, but he doesn't know anything about money. And he's teaching kids that the rich are evil. And I'm going, wait a minute. Let me just say it again. Our monetary system is fake money. And the people that work for it, with that book, White Working Class and all that, they're getting ripped off. The harder they work for money, the more tax they pay. They put it in the bank, and inflation eats it away. And if they're in the stock market, they don't know how to handle it if the stock market comes down. And that's all basic financial education. So that's why President Trump and I have become good friends as advocates of financial education for everybody. How did he fundamentally know the same secrets you knew? I mean, how did you discover this stuff? Well, we both had rich dads. His dad was rich, and my rich dad was a rich guy. So in my latest book, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer, I explain how debt and taxes make the rich richer. In other words, it's ironic that, in 1971, the dollar became debt, an IOU from the US Treasury and the Fed. And because it's debt, the more I use debt to buy assets, the less tax I pay. So the reason the rich are getting richer is they use debt and pay less in taxes legally. Even before your book came out, my dad would explain, no, the rich are leveraging debt. And it didn't make sense to me when I was like 14 years old, but that's what they're doing. But they teach us to go into debt and just to them for nothing instead of using the debt to build stuff. Yes, you should use debt. I mean, you have to have financial education to use debt because it's dangerous. Looks like a gun. Well, let's talk about it in a final segment with Robert Kiyosaki.
richdad.com. His new book is out, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. What is financial education? Yeah, because exactly. You're not going to get it from a professor or some school teacher. Nothing against them. They're making $40,000 a year. They're not who you learn how to get successful from. And we want to make everybody successful. That's what free market's about. Why the rich are getting richer. But if you go back in time, we had super ultra rich, but maybe they had a third of the wealth or 20%. Now it's 70+% is by less than 1%. Then that 1/10 of 1%, 6%. The giant underclass on the middle class, that's the top 10%, which is the engine of success. Why would the elites not just set up this consolidation of power and money and have vertical integration, but then try to kill the engine of free market like they're rising up the ladder so no one, gets up it? Are they really trying to form a cold-blooded monopoly? That's why I like what you do. You're exposing what they're up to so that the average person can not be monopolized, or what are you up to?
Well, I hate to say this, the story of rich dad, poor dad. My poor dad went to Stanford, Northwestern University of Chicago. Very good man, and you would call him an elite, but they have no financial education, and they're more socialist than capitalist. That's where it starts. My concern is, without knowing it, the school system is complicit. They're big part of the program, because they teach you to be poor. Remember, the US dollar after 1971 became fake money designed by the Fed and the Treasury and Wall Street to steal your life and your wealth from you. So that's why when you save money, you get nothing for it. The first thing you do when you get your paycheck, taxes are sucked out of it. So why the rich are getting richer is about debt and taxes. How the rich, like President Trump and I, get richer. I'm not saying you should do it or that it's not without risk, but you should be aware.
Sure, but how was the conscious decision made 1913 and then, you had other agreements later, Bretton Woods in the 40s. How do they decide, let's dynamite a system that makes the general public wealthy and the elite even more wealthy? No, let's have a system where you're poor and the elite use austerity to control you. Isn't that what the Trump revolution is? Is he's actually trying to deliver back a real level playing field? Because that makes the rich even richer. Isn't that the essence of this?
But that's why he's under attack so much. That's why you're under attack so much. That's why I come under attack, because we go after the academic elites who are really parasitic. They really don't know what they're doing. And they've led our country. Today we had Bernanke and we have Yellen. They're college professors running the most powerful central bank in history, and they need a paycheck. We need somebody who knows
and
how to
Trump has forced them to come 10 degrees, not 180, towards what he wants, and it's already got the economy roaring, and they start going, we'll never grow, to we don't want to overheat. Overheat means they don't get to turn you into renters, you become wealthy. They don't want that.
Right, and the worst thing, I'm terrified right now is, as you know, all markets go up, and if the market goes down, President Trump will get the blame. And it's those guys. You see, the problem isn't in the stock market. The problem is in our bond markets. And the average person doesn't even know what a bond is because they don't have enough money. And we're being ripped off by the very people we trust our money to.
Please elaborate on that. As a self-made, Marine Corps veteran of Vietnam, a guy that's made hundreds of millions of dollars, #1 New York Times bestseller. When you don't usually talk like that. When you say you're horrified, I'm listening.
Well, all markets go up and all markets come down. It's like Lucy and the football. They're gonna pull the football away, and they really don't want Trump to do what he does. And you have Buffett up there. Look at what Buffett's doing. He's taken his money from stocks and put it into a railroad. Everybody should not listen to what Buffett is saying. Watch what he does. You should get.
He says, stay in stocks while he's grabbing his money out as fast as he can.
Amen. Watch what he does, not what he says. So get your money out of stocks and get into real gold. Silver, gold and silver coins, because there's now fake gold out there. It's fake everything. But anyway, right now you better get real as quickly as possible and possibly start your own business, because if the next crash comes, many people will lose their jobs.
Well, I mean, if the robber baron kleptocrat monopoly men would have gotten behind Trump's recovery, could it have been bulletproof? I mean, I hope it just keeps going, but I agree. They're openly fighting against it with interest rates hikes. They can't get rid of Obamacare right now. That's a wet blanket. I mean, to watch them cheerlead and admit they want to plunge things to discredit Trump, that is sickening.
Well, what's really sickening is that they're only doing it to get richer.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? The problem started in 2008 when that market came down. They could have fixed it then, but they were making too much money, so why fix it? So the biggest money printing in history went on, and now they don't know how to stop what's about to come. There's too much money, unfortunately. There's too much money in only a few people's hands, and that's why I wrote Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. Everything is opposite of what they teach you in school.
And their desperate rearguard reaction is to start a race war so we don't notice that they stole our entire future and know full well what they've done and given all the fiat money to themselves. It'd be one thing if they gave it to everybody, you just have inflation, and which we do have. Instead, they've, as you said, they've concentrated it in the hands of a few thousand jerks who are all fake liberal dirtbags, and then Trump wades in and you wade in and try to fix it, and then they call you the devil.
Absolutely, the same as you. So remember, there's fake news, there's fake money, and there's fake assets. And right now, you got to be very careful if you're in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or ETFs. You got to know what's real and what's not
and
real.
Your book breaks it down. It's one thing to ride the bubble up to get out at the right time, but you folks never know when the thief comes in the night. Your book breaks it down, but in a minute and a half, what are you doing with your money?
Well, I'm in gold and real estate, and I love debt. And I minimize my taxes because I use debt. Remember, in 1971, money became debt. It's fake money. So when some people are saying get out of debt, I'm getting into debt. And that's why debt and taxes make the rich richer.
But there's a ratio to do it. You don't, I mean, if you're going to get into debt, you want to get in big.
I'm 100% debt on most of my investments. But I've been trained to do it by my rich dad. So Trump.
And again, you explain that. I haven't read your book in 20 years, but you explain you had a rich dad and a poor dad.
Well, my poor dad was my father, a Stanford University Chicago guy, but he knew nothing. And my
He's behind you right there in the photo.
That's my poor dad. He was Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Ran for Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii. He's a Republican. He got crushed because he stood up to the most corrupt state government in the nation.
That's the poor dad. Tell us about the rich dad.
The rich dad, well, let me just say that he stood up to, as a Republican, to the corrupt Democratic government of Hawaii, and he lost his job. And then my rich dad was my best friend's father, who never went to school, but he owned most of Waikiki. So I listened to him instead of my poor dad.
So that was smart of you.
I like listening to smart people like you.
I listen to you too. All right, Robert Kiyosaki, the new book, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. What is financial education? Please join us again soon. It was hard to get you on. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for doing what you do, Alex. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, sir.